Good morning. Welcome to the Formless Podcast number 23. Still going strong despite setbacks. I'm Dustin, your humble host. Joining me is Tyler, the superhuman. Today we have no guest. Quick word about that. We did have something lined up. Unforeseen circumstances kind of threw a wrench in the works. In true formless fashion, we decided to power through and make something happen anyway. We're just going to talk. We have kind of a guideline of what we're going to talk about, but in reality, we're flying without a guide wire today. You know,
no form way.
Let's go. Before we started recording, we were talking. There's a handful of students that are almost there on the brink of testing for their black belt, and we had a really good conversation about what that is, what that takes. And I thought maybe we could just talk a little bit about that. And I had a thought, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
Okay.
So you train, take 5, 6, 7 years to train. Get right up to the pinnacle of testing for your black belt. Do you agree that there is a little bit there has to be a little bit of self-driven factor?
Absolutely.
Like you've been given all those tools or taught all those tools. Here you are, and now like it's a little bit more like you're out going on the road for the first time in your own car. Like here you go. I give you the keys. I told you how to check the oil. You know how to look at the tread on the tires. You can operate the vehicle, and here you go.
That's a great
analogy. You're now in the driver's seat.
That's great.
Do you agree?
I totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah, that you know, like at least in regards to our system or in other systems I've seen.
Well, I would think, yeah. Go ahead.
That you know, every advancement to a belt, you're learning these new tools, and you're kind of not babied along, that is the wrong word, but that you're guided, you know, through the belt system, you know, and through those tools, and you've got a solid structure, and it's like right to the brink. It's to get that black belt. It's almost like that mind shift has to shift before you get the black belt. Like you've got to start being and thinking like a black belt before your test day. Like, for me, I think it really started. I really started thinking like a black belt when I had a couple of other black belts. One guy, you know, Dave Van Klinken, Sensei Dave Van Klinken, he had 3 other black belts and 3 other arts, and a green belt in another art. So this guy was carrying 4 belts. He said, "You're already a black belt." You know, he told me multiple times before the test, he said, "You're already a black belt. You're here training. You know, you've got the skill, you know, and you've got all these things." Another black belt was saying, "No, you're already a black belt, and you've got to start thinking like one." And so having those 2 people tell me, "You're already a black belt, you've got to start thinking like one," that's when I started saying, okay, well, I've got to do this. I've got to start thinking like one. And that was 2 months before our test. And that's when I really started thinking like a black belt. And then when you get, like you said, right to the brink of that, you've been given all the tools, you've been shown what to do. That last step is your step to take. You know, it
has to be kind of self-driven.
It's like the biggest step, but it's also the smallest and simplest step too.
But you're stepping out into the void.
Yeah.
You really are.
And if you're stepping out into the void, do you take a big step or a small step?
Either step's going to get you out.
Either step's going to get you out there.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So
I didn't think of
that's my opinion. Is that so there has to be an element of self-drivenness, because it's like, well, once you get to black belt and then get past black, you want to start doing your different levels, whatever system you're in, and you want to get to the different levels of black belt if you have different degrees. You know, that has to be you are self-driven. You are committed yourself. You know. So that's a good word, self-driven.
Well, I really think that you kind of have to have a little bit of that. You have to be self-driven anyway.
In anything.
To train.
Yeah.
To train. Yeah. Because it's not like your teacher's coming down to pick you up twice a week.
Hey, I'll be there at 7 a.m. I'm going to wake you up. I'm going to show up. And
so...
I'm going to brush your teeth for you.
And Sensei Blue always says, stay on your goal. That's one of his things. Stay on your goal. And it's crazy. Serendipitously, I was reading a book this morning. I have a stack of books that are always in my car. These books here. Yeah. I have a stack of books. They're almost always in my car. So if I go somewhere, because I'm early to everything. I try to be early to everything. I hate to be late. So I always have something to do. I can read.
It looks like these books are your scripture.
Yeah, sort of, kind of. I have a phone with me, but I'm on social media quite a bit for the podcast and for work. I got my phone's always getting messages and stuff. So as addictive as that is, I do try to set it down and do something else more constructive. The book that I was reading a little bit before Tyler got here is called Be Water, My Friend, and it's by Shannon Lee, which is Bruce Lee's daughter.
What was it called?
Be Water, My Friend, and it's based off a quote from Bruce Lee, the water quote. He has this whole long explanation about water. Water can flow, water can crash. If you put water in a teacup, it becomes the teacup. If you put water in a bowl, it becomes the bowl. Be formless, be shapeless, be water, my friend. And that's not verbatim. Don't quote me on that. But I think it's pretty close because I've read that a number of times. But anyway, in the book, and I haven't finished it yet. I'm only on like the 4th or 5th chapter, this read through. But one of the things that she goes into, and it's basically stories that either mom or dad told her when she was little, or stuff going through his journals that she's found after he passed. And she got older because he passed when she was real little. But one of the things, he has 8 tools, and then that he goes over for Jeet Kune Do. And then he has like these other things that are kind of what he did to create goals for himself. And one of the first one was called Take Aim. And the idea was that he wrote out his big, super far, in a perfect world goal that he wanted. And it was basically, and he wrote it out to himself like a contract. I, Bruce Lee, will be the first highest paid Oriental superstar in the United States. In return, I will give the most exciting performances and render the best quality in the capacity of an actor. This was in 1969 that he wrote this. Starting 1970, I will achieve world fame, and from then onward till the end of 1980, I will have in my possession $10 million. I will live in a way I please and achieve inner harmony, and happiness. Now, obviously, he died before that happened, but the idea was that he had this huge, far-off goal. 10 years down the road, he wanted to be a big movie star. He wanted this, he wanted this, he wanted that. And then he broke that down. And like the next goal in here is like within 5 years, I will have X, Y, and Z, and I will do this. And then in 2 years, I'm going to have A, B, and C, and I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. And like it goes on. So he had this huge, overreaching, massive, almost impossible goal. And then within 10 years' time. And then in like 5 years' time, he had a smaller, more manageable piece. And then in 2 years' time, he had an even smaller, more manageable piece. And like that was a different way of thinking about things. Mm-hmm. Like my whole life, if I wanted something, I would write it down. Like, okay, I want a bicycle. When I was a kid, I wanted a bicycle. I wanted a BMX bike. well, my parents weren't going to just buy me one. But my parents sat down with me and made a deal. Said if I earned half the money, they would pitch in the other half. And the bike I wanted was like, I think it was $300. This was like 1991, 92. $300 is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. For a 12-year-old kid, that was a lot of money. My dad had a connection with somebody that worked at a local paper, and he's like, "You're not old enough, but I think I might be able to get you." It was a weekly paper. We might be able to get you a paper out. So starting that summer of my 11th year or 12th year, I got a paper out. I had 410 papers once a week to deliver. And it filled up, the old school newspaper bags. You put them on your bicycle handlebars, you put them over your shoulder. Yeah. I could barely carry it. Like I was fine as long as the wind didn't blow, I was fine. So starting that summer, I got this paper out and I threw papers. And for a long time, it took me, minimum wage was, I don't even know if I made minimum wage. I had to make minimum wage. I don't remember how much money I made, but I think I got like $60 every 3 weeks or every 2 weeks or something like
for
that.
An 11-year-old?
Yeah. I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but it took me a long time to make that money. It took me a long time. So anyway, every week, throwing these papers out, and it just got easier because the bag got lighter. Every house was a paper, I had this goal, and I've always, that really instilled in me to work for goals. So I always had short range goals. I never had this overrange long-term goal. I always had little short-term goals. I want something, I got to do this to work for it, that kind of thing. But that was the first time that reading that little blurb, that was kind of, I never thought about life like that, this long-term overreaching goal that may or may not be achieved. I've never thought in terms that way. So that was kind of a different thought process.
That's so interesting, though, but it was a long-term goal for you.
As a kid, that's an eternity.
3 months or whatever.
Yeah, it took me, because, of course, I wasn't always the best with my money. I got my paycheck. The first paycheck, I probably blew completely.
Wait. So you were doing this to earn money
to buy a bicycle.
Well, how did you deliver the papers?
I walked it.
Wow.
I walked it. I walked the entire. I had a bike, but the papers. I didn't even. Gosh, when I was 12 years old, I probably didn't even weigh. I didn't probably even weigh 100 pounds. I was a skinny little kid. You wouldn't know it now, but I was a string bean. But yeah, I walked it because I could not ride my bicycle with the papers on the bike. I didn't have enough strength or weight to support the bike.
Was it an older bike that you had?
I did. It was an older bike.
Bike.
It was an older bike. I just wanted I wanted this BMX bike, and it was it's chromoly steel. It was chrome, and it was a Robinson. Went to the bike store. Here's how devious my parents were. They took me to the bike store, knowing full well that I couldn't buy the bicycle, and basically let me set my eyes on it and sit on it and push it around the store. And we're like, okay, if that's what you want, you got to work for it. I'll help you. We'll pitch in for half, which was more money than they should have spent probably. But I went to work shortly after and started doing that, and then as soon as I got that money, I had enough money saved up, I was like, all right, I got a bike, see ya. quit the paper out and rode my bike for a long time. Yeah.
Oh man.
But I've always had short-term stuff like that. I never really thought about long-term goals. Now that I'm older, I think about that, and I have long-term goals.
That's a great story.
It was the summertime here, it's freaking hot. 110, man. 115. That's a normal summer. So throwing those bags on in the summertime and just flinging papers. I remember sometimes like my parents would leave the house to go run errands and they'd drive around the neighborhood and find me. give me a bottle of water or something, you know? or in those days, the sports jug, you know, the water bottles. Here's some water.
Don't you probably had to do that early in the morning, right?
It just depended. Sometimes I'd get the papers like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I wouldn't get them until the afternoon. And then when I started school, I'd get the papers, like they were a little bit more, it seemed more scheduled. And so I'd get them in the morning and I'd wrap as many papers as I could before school because I had to fold them up. And they were just like, they were the thinnest thing. You know, they weren't very big. It was just the local Valley Post.
Oh,
so
Valley
you just roll it up and throw a rubber band on it. But that led to like other things. I had a guy that ran a grocery store like a mom and pop grocery store, and he would print flyers off for me. So I'd go pick up flyers from him and slide those into the paper.
Huh.
Because, well, I found out later he was doing that so he didn't have to pay the paper company. a little under, and then he'd throw me like, I don't remember, 10 or 20 bucks.
That's smart.
Yeah.
You know what strikes me about that story is that your initial load every day was heavy.
Yeah.
But then every time as soon as you started, it was the heaviest it was going to be. And it just got lighter.
It got lighter as I went.
It got lighter from there.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That's a good point.
That every time you threw a paper, the job got a little bit easier.
And that was, I think my mom or my dad kind of told me that when I first put it on. Because I literally put that bag on, you know, you stuff them full of papers. And it's like sitting a beach ball on your stomach and on your back.
Uh-huh.
It filled up both bags. They look like saddlebags.
Saddlebags,
yeah. So I filled those things up, and my dad just started laughing because I had to look like a freaking cartoon, you know. Just and I remember kind of like teetering a little bit, and then you know, somebody steadying me and like, okay, there you go. and
you throw one and you get off balance and teeter and fall over.
The first day it probably took me 3 hours to do the whole thing, just because it was so, you know, out of my element.
The bag got lighter, but your strength got better.
Yeah,
lighter,
it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. I just thought of it. That's cool.
Yeah, those funny things you see, you know, you think of, you know, 40 years, you know, 38 years later.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
30 years later, yeah. Holy cow.
So because you're 42.
Yeah.
So.
But, you know, I've always had like short-term goals. I've always been a very much immediate, like I want this now, like that kind of thing. So I can work for the short-term goal, but I never had my eye on like the long-term over the lifespan type of goal. I couldn't see that far, especially as a kid. I couldn't see that far. No. As an adult, I can see that now, kind of. But as a kid, it was just like, what can I do? The quickest thing to get me what I need here.
Which I want the bike.
Yeah. And I probably did that for like a year, maybe.
Paper route?
Yeah, maybe. I don't recall how long. It was a while, because I remember the first paycheck I got, I blew it completely. I didn't save any money from that. And like, my parents were cool in a way that like they didn't try and control what I did, as far as like, you earned it, that's your money, but I'm not going to give you any more money. So if you blow that money, that's your own fault, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so like I remember that first paycheck was just gone in a matter of minutes, because like probably went and bought a bunch of soda and candy, and like bought my friends sodas and candy and baseball cards and whatever else, you know.
Which is understandable.
Yeah. And it was gone. So, you know, and then the next check I got, I was a little bit more, okay, I learned that lesson. I'm going to put a little bit of this aside. So it wasn't consistent. The third check was probably blown again. So who knows, you know. That's one of the books I bring all the time.
Be water, my friend.
Be water, my friend. And it's actually really good. There's a lot of little lessons and things in there that I think anybody could get some lessons out of. Not just a martial artist. It's for everyone. But I think martial artists would especially get things out of it. But anybody, if you actually read it and sit down and really read it, I think anybody could get something good out of it. It's a good book. It really is. And she actually has a podcast too called Be Water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's good. They're like, I think they've only got about a dozen or so episodes in so far. I was listening to it fairly regularly, but I got distracted by my own podcast. So
darn.
Yeah. And then one of the other books I have is A Book of Five Rings. This is a used book I bought at a used bookstore. Miyamoto Musashi, who is probably one of the greatest samurai in Japanese history. He's kind of a tall tale. Like I was explaining, my wife was asking about who that was. And if you know who Paul Bunyan is, or John Henry, or Pecos Bill, or Annie Oakley, those are all American tall tales that we hear about as kids. Miyamoto Musashi, I think, is kind of a Japanese tall tale. And in that he was a real person. He was a extraordinary samurai, fought a bunch of duels, like most of them to the death. But he's kind of become this figure that just has never died. Like there's comic books and movies and cartoons and things told about him, and some of those are true to history and some of them are wildly outlandish fiction, but they use him as the hero of the story. There's tons and tons of stuff in there. From my understanding, somebody was telling me it's been it's a book that's studied by military historians and business classes and schools and stuff. There's just all sorts of little things in there. But this guy, the outstanding thing is like I think he fought his first duel at like 13 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's getting started.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that he did, sometimes he would fight with like. There's stories of him fighting with no armor against an armored opponent, or having a wooden. Basically a training sword going against somebody with a real live sword, and just all that sort of stuff. And he's got all sorts of cool little sayings in here and rules and things, and it's all geared towards sword fighting.
I remember one of the things when I read that book that really stuck out to me was he said that a samurai or somebody who's training with a sword, they'll have their main sword, that they fight with, but they'll have a smaller, like, not a dagger, I don't remember the exact wording he used, but a smaller sword, something bigger than a dagger, but smaller than a full sword.
Okay.
And they would have that in a sheath on their hip.
Mm-hmm.
And they would never pull that thing out. They would only fight with the one big sword, whatever, their samurai sword or something. They would only fight with that. And they would never pull that little one out to fight with. And he's like, well, why even
carry it?
Carry it and die with it on your hip if you're not going to use it. He's like, if you're going to carry it, that thing needs to come out. Like, don't save that thing for whatever. Like, save it. Use it.
Yeah.
Like I remember this funny thing when I was a kid. This is why that story of his hit. When I was a kid, and I would buy, you'd buy those boxes of Valentine's Day cards that you would take to school. And you'd get like 50 of them or whatever. And
you write everybody's name on it.
And you'd get, whatever, Spider-Man or X-Men or whatever, any of those kid ones. Well, I would always save the coolest ones in the ones I liked. I would save them in that box and hide them in a drawer. And I would give the not cool ones, the ones that I didn't like, I would give to the kids at school.
Okay.
And I would save the cool ones that I really liked, or I would save 3 of the 5 cool ones, right? Like, let's say those, if there was a card I liked, I would save 3 and I would give 2 to the kids at school. And I've gotten older and I'm like, well, what good was that? Like I should have gave all those
away. Yeah.
What good was it to save them in the box, like in my drawer? It's the same kind of principle. Why would you carry a sword at your hip if you're never going to pull it out and use it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Only carry the stuff that you're going to use. So that is the one thing that stuck out to me when I read that book. And I don't remember the exact wording he used, but it was something to that effect.
Yeah, that's cool. That's funny. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff. And actually, the cool thing about this used book is the guy whoever had it before me highlighted a bunch of stuff in here. Like, this is one that he highlighted, or she highlighted. Like a trooper, the carpenter sharpens his own tools.
Yeah.
Sharpening and polishing the Japanese sword is today a work undertaken only by a specialist, but perhaps the art was more widespread in the age of war. If a sword is imperfectly polished and the surface of the blade incorrectly shaped, even if it is a very sharp, fine weapon, it will not cut at all well.
Huh.
Yeah, just all sorts of really cool stuff in there, and I dig that. I read that book infrequently. I don't think I've ever sat down. It's not a very big book, but I don't think I've ever sat down and like read it cover to cover. I kind of just open it up and read a couple pages here and there. I've read the whole thing, but like in chunks. Not like okay, I'm gonna sit down and read chapter 1 today, kind of thing.
You were savoring it.
Yeah, and this last book, and we're gonna kind of. Well, I'm not going to say keep this short because we've been at it for a while already. The last book that I'm reading from right now is, there's just 2 things here. This is something I think I got for a birthday or something. Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual by Jocko Willink. I got this right before COVID.
Okay.
And it kind of just got thrown on the back burner. I was excited to get it, but I didn't read it right away. I just kind of like set it down. COVID happened. All sorts of crazy stuff was going on in my own personal life. I got evacuated for the car fire. And this book stayed at home.
Oh, wow.
So when I finally got to get back home, I found it like in unpacking and like cleaning things up. I found it and I was like, oh yeah. Total stressful time in my life. There was a whole bunch of stuff happening. My mother-in-law passed during that time. The fire, dealing with the insurance companies and all of that sort of stuff. And then shortly after that, like get through with that, then like COVID rolls around and then everything's going on with the school, my work, all of that stuff. And then this morning, having a monkey wrench thrown in the works here with the podcast. I read about, and this book is not really a story. It's more like different little subjects and thoughts on those subjects. And the first one is stress. And I don't think it is very long. Stress. First of all, and I don't mean to minimize the stress people face, but imagine what Eugene Sledge went through on Peleliu and the tens of thousands of Marines the Marines there who suffered unimaginable horror. And I believe that was World War II.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Imagine David Hackworth assaulting enemy positions in Korea, wounded over and over again on the line and still going back for more. Imagine the warrior poet Alan Seeger in World War I, getting ready to go over the top and make his rendezvous with death. Imagine the thousands of warriors who have gone before you, who have stood and faced evil and death. And now imagine you. I used to do this to myself while in Iraq, facing stress. Yes, we took casualties, and yes, it was awful and heartbreaking and every bit as wretched as I could imagine. But warriors have faced much worse. The Battle of Somme, or Gettysburg, or the Battle of the Bulge, or the Chosin Reservoir. Humans can withstand almost inconceivable stress, and you can too. So that is the first step. gain perspective. And to do that, you must do something critical in many situations. Detach. Whatever problem or stress you are experiencing, detach from them. Stress is generally caused by what you can't control. The worst thing about incoming artillery fire is that you can't control it. Huh. It is. I have never experienced that, so I can imagine that it's terrible.
Yeah, you don't know where it's going to land.
Yeah. It's happening, and you just have to accept it. Don't stress about things you can't control. If the stress is something that you can control and you are not, that is a lack of discipline and a lack of ownership. Get control over it. Impose your will and make it happen. Solve the problem. Relieve the stress. If the stress is something you can't control, embrace it. You can't control it, but how can you look at it from a different angle? How can you use it to your advantage? I couldn't control the chaos of combat. I had to embrace it. I had to figure out a way to take advantage of it. Make it into your ally. So don't fight the stress. Embrace it. Turn it on itself. Use it to make yourself sharper and more alert. Use it to make you think and learn and get better and smarter and more effective. Use the stress to make a better you. Yeah.
Harnessing stress.
Harnessing stress.
If that's if it's applicable.
Well, and like, it always could be worse.
It always could
be worse. You know. And so like my thing now is like, if I do get stressed, I try and be like, okay, well, how much worse could this be? Well, I've got food. I've got a house, nobody's shooting at me, I've still got all my limbs, it could be worse.
The glass is half full versus the glass is half empty.
Absolutely.
That's good. That was really good.
Yeah. And then my favorite one, and I read this, so when COVID happened, we started doing like one-on-one lessons. We were videotaping stuff, and we basically set up a little Facebook group for our martial arts for the school. And for the most part, most people were pretty, nobody really had anything else to do. So we were all on there quite a bit. And so one of the things that I saw, another Jocko thing, was good. This is a different, you kind of have to adjust your way of thinking about things. How do I deal with setbacks, failures, delays, defeats, and other disasters? I actually have a fairly simple way of dealing with these situations, summed up in one word: good. This is something that one of my direct subordinates, one of the guys who worked for me, a guy who became one of my best friends, pointed out. He would pull me aside with some major problem or some issue that was going on, and he'd say, "Boss, we've got this situation, and it's going terribly wrong." And I would look at him and I'd say, "Good." And finally, one day, he was telling me about something that was going off the rails, and as soon as he finished explaining it to me, he said, "I already know what you're going to say." And I asked, "What am I going to say?" And he said, "You're going to say, good." He continued, "That's what you always say. When something is wrong or going bad, you just look at me and say, good." And I said, I mean it, because that is how I operate. That right there, that is how I operate. I have two mottos that I listen to. One of them I stole from Jocko, which is discipline equals freedom. And the other one is attitude is everything. And I seriously believe that with all my heart. If you have the right attitude, you could do anything. If you look at everything and then it sucks and it's hard, you're never going to get anything done.
That's good.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the book here. So I explained to him that when things are going bad, there's going to be some good that will come from it. Oh, the mission got canceled. Good. We could focus on another one. Didn't get the new high-speed gear we needed. Good. We can keep it simple. Didn't get promoted. Good. More time to get better. Didn't get funded. Good. We own more of the company. We didn't get the job we wanted. Good. Go out, gain more experience, and build a better resume. Got injured? Good. Needed a break from training. Got tapped out? Good. It's better to get tapped out in training than to tap out in the streets. Got beat? Good. We learned. Unexpected problems, good. We have the opportunity to figure out a solution. That's it. When things are going bad, don't get all bummed out. Don't get startled. Don't get frustrated. No, just look at the issue and say good. Now, I don't mean to say something trite. I'm not trying to sound like Mr. Smiley positive guy that ignores all the hard truth. The guy that thinks a positive attitude will solve problems. It won't, but neither will dwelling on the problem. No, accept reality, but focus on the solution. Take that issue, take that setback, take that problem, and turn it into something good. Go forward. And if you are part of a team, that attitude will spread throughout. Finally, if you can say the word good, then guess what? It means you're still alive. It means you're still breathing. And if you're still breathing, that means you've still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack. I dig that.
Yeah,
it's easier said than done. It's super easy to read it off the page and be like, yeah, I do this all the time. Because I don't for sure. But I try to remember that,
That's so interesting. That's good.
Yeah. So attitude is everything. That is my mantra. That's the thing I always try to remember because I have a crappy attitude most of the time.
I think a lot of us do.
Yeah, and well, with everything going on in the world, it's easy to do. But if you always dive towards the ditch when things are crappy, all you're going to know is what that ditch looks like.
Yeah.
So
and that a lot of that, like to circle back to what we started at the beginning of this podcast, that a lot of that is self-directed. That is
absolutely
self-directed.
Yeah.
And you have to do that, and nobody else can dust you off and lift you up and shove you back in the fight. I mean, they could, but the fight's got to be in you. It's got to be self-directed.
You have to. Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Do
it's
it
like
yourself.
when I taught two of my boys how to ride their bike. Tom is kind of right there on that edge, and he's super scared, but he wants to ride his bike because he wants to ride with his brothers. And so, haven't done it lately, but for a while there, we were going out. We have this little piece of property on our land, by our house that we. It's weird. My house is bonkers, but I have like an acre, just under an acre of property. My house, my garage, and then my backyard. And then across the street from my house, I have this probably 20 by 60 foot strip of land that's mine.
Across the street?
Across the street. And that's because the guy who wrote out who decided to put the road in must have been drunk on that day because the road goes right through the property. I don't know. I didn't even know it was mine when I bought it until my neighbor told me.
Okay.
So I had to go to the county and be like, is this actually my piece of property? What's the deal here? Yep, it's mine. So now I have another piece of land to mow, a piece of dirt to mow. Anyway, been out there teaching Tom how to ride the bike. He's got to be the one driving that. Like he's got to get up every time he falls down. I help him up sometimes, depending on how far away he is from me. But for the most part, trying to instill that this skill that he's trying to learn has to be self-driven. He's got to be the one that want to get on the bike. He has to pedal. He's got to steer it. Because I can't run behind him forever.
No. You can do that teaching him for a while.
Yeah.
But
get him used to everything.
But eventually, you like we were saying earlier, you get the belts, you go through the belt system.
You get the skills.
And you have an instructor taking you through it. And it seems like in our art, as you get higher, that the direction and the instruction of the instructor gets more, it's a lighter, he's still there, but it's a lighter touch. It's a more delicate touch.
Absolutely.
It's preparing to let you go.
Well, it's kind of like...
And pedal on your own.
It's kind of like a street sign.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is a one-way only here. Or this is a yellow light. You got to use caution. Or, turn here. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's not like X, Y, Z. Here's what you do. ABC, 1, 2, 3, this is everything you need to do. It's like, no, you've already gotten that part. You've gone through there, and then here you go.
And like, you start out with in the lower ranks, and it seems like a lot of it's heavier, and it's like, do this, do that. It's more directed, like your paper bag. Like you carrying the heavy paper bag, but as you're going down your route and you're throwing those papers out, it's getting lighter. Same thing as you progress through the belts, it seems like it gets a more lighter touch from,
Yeah, I never really thought about that.
Yeah, it becomes lighter in that it's sensei, whoever your sensei is, depending on your art, but within our art and who our sensei is, it gets to be a more lighter, delicate touch. Be still there, but it's preparing you to be like, okay, now you are pedaling on your own. You are self-directed.
Steering your own boat.
You're steering your own boat. So.
Well, on that note, I can't read. We've gone for a while here.
Yep.
I think we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Until next time, friends. Shout outs real quick. If you want to train with us, come down to Blancourt's Total Self-Defense in Anderson on McMurray Drive. If you have a website that you'd like to get built or an idea that you'd like to have done on the internet, contact the fine people at crowmollypro.com. Reach out to us if you have questions, want to be on our podcast, want us to be on yours. Email us at theformlesspod@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, formless_the. Reach out there. Send us memes, whatever. Email. Facebook group, The Formless Podcast. Check us out. Have fun. If you like what you're listening to, I've been meaning to say this for the last 22 episodes. If you like what you've been listening to, please subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you listen to us on. It's pretty important, apparently. The other thing, if you have the opportunity to rate and review, please do that as well. The more the merrier. We want as many people that can listen to this as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening and enjoy it.